She despised sex. She recognized her husband's mistresses and encouraged his infidelity. She was unable to cook and had a poor sense of fashion. Nonetheless, she was an invaluable aide and advisor to Lenin.
Nadezhda Krupskaya was the one who drafted the first laws on the Red Terror in the USSR. Under her dictation, Lenin penned the second part of his renowned testament, in which he labeled Stalin as a perilous careerist and suggested his removal from the leadership role within the party apparatus. Nadezhda Krupskaya influenced many of Lenin's actions, yet she was not driven by revolutionary ideals, nor by the desire for absolute power, nor even by love for her husband, but by a misconstrued maternal instinct.
Sensational details about the life of Lenin's wife. She dreamed of being loved, but could not gain a man's love. She desired to have children, but a dreadful disease robbed her of the pleasures of motherhood, and along with it, her sanity. Throughout her life, this woman was influenced by a severe mental disability that determined the course of her relationship with her husband, and consequently, the fate of the entire country. (1899), Shushinsky. She woke up with a sense of inexplicable anxiety. Sitting up, she noticed everything was quiet. Her husband was sleeping peacefully beside her. Nadezhda felt fear. A wave of excruciating pain swept through her entire body. She instinctively clutched her stomach. The baby.
Volodya.
And she collapsed into bed. Then everything became jumbled. Strange images and reality, a figure looming over her. She stared intently at the dark spot in front of her. His features became increasingly distinct. Hope was supplanted by horror. An elderly woman with wrinkles looked at her. She was cold.
Chase her away! Chase her away!
That's incorrect. Miscarriages frequently occur this way.
She was delirious. Delirium, reality, and memories were tightly interwoven in her fevered mind. With a darkened gaze, Nadezhda looked at her distraught husband. Volodya would not let her get hurt. He had promised. Back then, in St. Petersburg. In 1894, St. Petersburg. That was where the members of the secret revolutionary society took their oath, where she first saw Lenin. Not particularly attractive, bald, and entirely unremarkable. And yet, Nadia noticed this man immediately. As a night school instructor for workers, she was passionate about revolutionary ideas and eagerly absorbed Volodymir's fervent, emotive discourse. Looking at him, it was impossible to remain indifferent to either the concepts of the revolution or its spokesperson. She never expressed her feelings verbally, but persistently sought reasons to meet and was adept at finding them. When Ulyanov, who was overly active, was imprisoned for disseminating anti-state ideas, she was the first to write to him. Thus, their correspondence began.
At first glance, this appears to be a regular letter. It discusses the monotonous daily life in prison, walks, routine, and meals. The writer requests that I send him mineral water to aid digestion. But if this sheet is heated... Between the lines, you can discern something completely different. Notes containing revolutionary directives, declarations, even the party's agenda. This was an invention by Vladimir Ulyanov. If you write with milk, the lines disappear when they dry. This is how Lenin's renowned work, The Development of Capitalism in Russia, was published. In the same letter, Nadezhda Krupskaya received a marriage proposal from Vladimir Ulyanov.
Nadezhda couldn't contain her joy at becoming Vladimir's wife. Could one ask for more? I was glad he couldn't live without her anymore. I hoped that in time he would love her as much as she loved him. Her comrades in the underground movement shattered her blissful illusions. It turned out that it was a tradition in their group. Every unmarried revolutionary was expected to take a bride with him into exile to alleviate the hardships of the exile's life. In Ulyanov's opinion, Nadezhda, who was devoted and in love with him, was the perfect choice for the role. That's why he was quick to propose it to her. This realization was painful. Nadezhda realized that she only needed Volodya as a friend for convenience. She was already preparing to leave when she was arrested and sentenced to exile. Then Nadia was once again happy that Vladimir proposed to her. If not, she could have been assigned to another place. Otherwise, as Ulyanov's fiancée, she has the right to serve her exile alongside him in Shushenskoye. Nadezhda grabbed her suitcase and began stuffing it haphazardly with everything: dresses, books, stockings. A single thought consumed me. Winning his love would take time, and once the baby arrived, she wouldn't dare to dream. In Shushinsky, Volodya was delighted to meet her. A country house, stunning nature, and a well-organized lifestyle. Getting married, adjusting to each other. And then came the joyful news that she was pregnant. Everything was working out in the best possible way, just as she had planned. One night, she awoke with severe pain somewhere in her abdomen. That night, she had a miscarriage. Hope was gradually regaining her senses. She felt her body weary from pain and an unusual, dreadful emptiness within. Her husband was speaking softly with the doctor about something, and she was listening.
Pathology of the thyroid gland, also known as Graves' disease. She can never bear a child.
The diagnosis was a shock. She would never be able to have children again. Ever. On that day, Nadia discovered for the first time about her dreadful disease, which had been silently ravaging her body all this while. Due to an immune system malfunction, the thyroid gland started to overproduce hormones. Gradually, they start to impact all internal organs without exception, induce heart failure, disturb the digestive system, influence the nervous system, and lead to infertility. Nowadays, a simple blood hormone test is sufficient to diagnose this disease. In the past, they didn't perform these procedures, and the disease was diagnosed retrospectively, when the condition had already become irreversible. She wanted to hide, to shield herself with her hands, to scream out in pain and indignation. I wanted Volodya to be there, to hold her, to share her pain.
Volodya.
But he did not respond. Volodya sat at his desk and hastily wrote something. He would pause, gaze out the window, and resume writing. Burning resentment flooded her heart. He, her husband, was concerned about the fate of millions of strangers, yet he didn't even notice the suffering of the one closest to him. Then I suddenly felt ashamed. Nadezhda chastised herself. He had a great mission. She should be assisting him, not distracting him with her own suffering. In her understanding, true love was precisely that, devoted and sacrificial. But on that horrific day, the genuine, innocent, and open-hearted Nadia perished with her child. There is a stern, reserved woman who will never express her true feelings and will keep all her pain within. She saw a little boy, her child. I wanted to hug him, shield him from the entire world, hold him close, and never let him go. Nadezhda held the baby tightly and heard a strange, unchildlike moan. She opened her eyes and froze. Her child has a face that resembles adult Volodya. In a moment, the veil of the dream fell away. A man was moaning in his sleep in her arms. Hope was taken aback. What was this? Why were her husband and their unborn child intertwined in her imagination? What a frightening and unpleasant sight. Gradually, Nadia regained her composure and tried to analyze the cause of her dream. This was all, she thought, concerned about Volodya. His term of exile in Shushenskoye had ended. Tomorrow he is leaving for Europe, and she has to wait another year. That is how much time is left for the settlement. Hope could not compel him to stay. She couldn't, because she loved him more than anything else. And she dreamed that Volodya would find happiness. Not here, in the distant and remote Siberia, but there, in Europe, where the ideas of freedom and revolution originated, ideas that her husband lived by. And she let him go. No tears, no tantrums, no complaints. He left, unaware that from that moment on, her life would be on hold for an entire year.
The Marxist newspaper Iskra was published in Europe, but it was prohibited in Tsarist Russia due to its revolutionary content. However, with the help of her friends, Krupskaya obtained reprints of the original. She read them over several times, eagerly absorbing every word, because she knew that these lines were penned by her husband. This implies that Lenin is once again in an unlawful situation, once again engulfed in the whirlpool of revolutionary ideas, and he could not act otherwise. And this is how Krupskaya adored him.
(1901) Munich. She has never felt so lost. Munich is an unfamiliar, strange city, and hope is weak. Maybe this time she will be able to find him. She traversed half of Europe in search of her husband. She visited France and Austria, following the addresses from the letters that Lenin had sent her. But it was in vain. The man was nowhere to be found, and Nadia fell into despair. Munich was the last hope. The city that was once described by a man. He told me about a small tavern where Russian runaway revolutionaries would gather. Nadia could barely find her. She froze in place. Her loved one was sitting at the table. She could not believe her eyes. Nadia wanted to throw herself into his arms, to hug him tightly, to hear his voice. She was eagerly awaiting this.
Volodymyr, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nadia. Sit down and join us.
It was as if they had seen each other just yesterday, prosaic, dry, and offensive. My heart started to race with self-compassion. She swallowed the lump in her throat and pretended that everything was as it should be. I defended him. He's very busy, always on the move. I comforted myself. He was just adjusting, and eventually everything would fall into place. He will need her, will win her attention, her trust, and maybe even her love. It didn't matter that she was feeling worse each day. Graves's disease was progressing, but Krupskaya didn't pay it any mind. Ultimately, what matters is their unity, now and forever. Nadia will always remember these years of her life in Munich. They were almost never apart. We walked, read books, and talked and talked. It seemed that this was happiness, even if it was without children, but with my beloved husband by my side. And perhaps Nadezhda Krupskaya would have found the peaceful family happiness she longed for if Lenin had not fallen passionately and genuinely in love with another woman. In 1909, Nadia was in a hurry to get home in Paris. Today, Volodya promised to introduce her to a new party member. She opened the door and froze. A young woman in a stylish outfit sits comfortably and naturally on a chair.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Inessa Armand.
And so, a fatal woman entered their lives. A beauty with lush hair and green eyes, French by birth, a fiery revolutionary, a feminist. She is a mother of 5, an advocate for free love, cheerful, energetic, and playful. Lisa is what Lenin would call her. She was the complete antithesis of the reserved Krupskaya. She carried herself with ease, fell for men effortlessly. And the steadfast underground revolutionary Ulyanov Lenin fell under her spell. He had never met such bright, candid women in his life.
Tchaikovsky, the Queen of Spades, Iletsky's aria, I love you beyond measure. This was Lenin's favorite song. Back in Shushenskoye, he used to sing it to his wife. This melody is associated with the best moments of their married life. But Krupskaya hadn't heard it since she left her exile, and now this music was playing again. The music is the same, the words are the same, but the recipient is different. Inessa Armand.
Inessa changed the record, and the sounds of a trendy tango emanated from the gramophone. Lenin stood there, looking awkward. He couldn't dance, but he didn't dare admit this to Inessa. She understood everything on her own, laughed, and asked Lenin to dance. He was happy to start playing the game. She guided him in dance, and he felt prepared to follow this woman anywhere. Nadia watched with a bitter feeling as her husband transformed. She had never seen him like this. Typically serious and concentrated on his work, he became jovial and occasionally even carefree in Inessa's presence. Revolutionary ideas no longer seemed to interest Ilyich as much. His thoughts, his heart, his time were entirely consumed by Inessa. And Nadia was frightened. Was that it and her husband no longer needed her? Nadia could not sleep. I went to the mirror and looked closely. No, it couldn't have been her. Had the illness distorted her features so much over the years? Her eyes were lifeless. Her eyelids were sagging. The rosiness had faded. An obese, unhealthy woman. Unconsciously, she compared herself to the vibrant, cheerful Inessa. She was only 5 years younger than Krupskaya, but she appeared to be a girl. The contrast was too strong. Well, Vladimir can be understood. He is still a vibrant, energetic man in his 40s. And who is she now? That night she had a strange dream. She got lost in the forest. The dense forest thickets, the fog, and the silence are terrifying and oppressive. Suddenly I heard a faint whimper in the distance. Nadia listened. A child was crying for her mother. She rushed towards the call, pushing through the bushes. Search, pacify, safeguard. The crying became louder and louder. On the lawn, a small, confused boy stood. She rushed towards him, seized his shoulders, and trembled. It took her a long time to regain her senses. The old nightmare had returned. Nadia looked at her husband. Volodya was breathing heavily and tossing and turning in bed. She placed her hand on his forehead and immediately regained her senses. He was burning up, and the high fever made him delirious.
The patient needs to be hospitalized.
Nadia looked on, unable to comprehend. How could she hand him over, to entrust the health of the most important person in the world to strangers? No, it was unthinkable. She dismissed the doctor and was left alone with her ailing husband. Nadia had no doubts that she would do everything by herself, without anyone's help.
Linden, coltsfoot, mint, milk with baking soda and honey. Krupskaya treated Lenin for pneumonia according to her own judgment, using traditional folk remedies, just as her mother had once treated her. She applied vinegar compresses, fed him broth to restore his strength, and eventually prevailed. The disease subsided.
Nadia sat next to her husband and felt like the happiest person in the world. He needs it. It saved him from death, and now he won't give it to anyone. And since she didn't have any children, all her love was devoted to her husband. The door of the room opened quietly. Inessa stood at the threshold. Nadia's heart was broken. She looked at her husband, and I saw his eyes light up, and he reached out to Armand. Suddenly, a simple thought struck her. He desires it, and she Nadezhda has no right to rob him of his joy, especially now that she has managed to rescue him from death with such effort. The excruciating pain that engulfed my whole body suddenly subsided.
Inessa, how nice of you to come. Volodya has been waiting for you. Please come in.
Although Nadezhda never displayed scenes of jealousy, Inessa noticed that Lenin's wife was struggling with her husband's infidelity. Now, observing how amicable Ilyich's wife was towards her, Armand concluded that she must be out of her mind. When Krupskaya invited Inessa to live with them during lunch, she was taken aback. It was inconceivable. A wife voluntarily dispatches her husband's lover to him. However, Krupskaya persisted. Lenin endorsed this idea, and a hesitant Inessa consented under the guise that she would assist Krupskaya in getting Ilyich back to health as swiftly as possible. At that moment, an extraordinary family was formed in a typical Parisian apartment: Lenin, Krupskaya, and Inessa Armand. All three of them were called Ilyichs. Lenin was elated. The complicated situation had resolved itself. Now he didn't have to choose between the women dear to his heart. Nadia voluntarily relinquished her role as a wife. He didn't even realize that his illness and her desperate fight for his life had sparked a new emotion in Nadia's heart, one rooted in pathological sacrificial love and a potent yet unsolicited maternal instinct. The future lives of Lenin, Armand, and Krupskaya suited all three of them, until a revolution erupted in Russia. Lenin decided to return to his homeland immediately. Krupskaya went with him. Armand is still waiting in Paris.
Smolny Palace. On October 25, 1917, significant events occurred here. These events marked the beginning of the October Bolshevik Revolution. Lenin secretly visited this place. It was hard to recognize him with his shaved beard and bandaged jaw. He was accompanied by a woman. Her name was Nadezhda Krupskaya. She will take her husband to the palace. She would become Lenin's sole liaison for the entire period. Every day, she navigates her way through the crowd of soldiers, sailors, and workers, all for the purpose of delivering Lenin's notes to his fellow comrades.
And the efforts were not in vain. The provisional government was overthrown and a new one, the Council of People's Commissars, was formed. Lenin was appointed as the head of the government. The government of the newly formed republic relocated to Moscow. All this time, Krupskaya was by his side, ready to lend a helping hand at any moment. She made his life as easy as she could. She adhered to all his directives, attempted to caution him, and strived to fulfill his every desire. She sensed him without words and from a distance. Only a mother can feel her child. She shuddered at the shrill cry. A playground bustling with a noisy crowd of children around an old swing. Nadia did not understand how she ended up in this place. Who are these children, and who are they stoning so cruelly? Nadia screamed. Overwhelmed with anger, she rushed to his aid, but did not have time to reach him. A loud knock on the door woke her up. She hurried to open the door. Several men were carrying a bloodied man in their arms. Nadia's eyes darkened. An attempt was made on his life. Enemies. Enemies are everywhere. Pushing the doctor aside, she rushed to the injured man. She won't let anyone touch him. She will cleanse the blood herself, heal the wounds herself. The people present watched her frantic movements with fear. In the evening, Lenin's fever increased. He daydreamed about the socialist revolutionaries and Mensheviks, the adversaries of the revolution. She listened to his words. This is who is responsible for his injury. A strong desire for revenge washed over Krupskaya like a wave. Breathing became difficult. My vision started to fade. She will eliminate anyone who threatens the life of her Volodya. The Red Terror decree was issued a few days after the assassination attempt on Lenin. Enemies must be destroyed. Capture representatives of the bourgeoisie. Establish detention centers. Implement mass executions. Take steps to prevent the bodies from falling into the wrong hands. Few people are aware that the actual author of this document was Nadezhda Krupskaya. In this way, she avenged the insult inflicted on her husband. Later on, Lenin will not only become accustomed to Nadia's excessive care, but he will also become unable to manage without her. She did her best to be everything for him, did all she could. Even the things she was not good at.
Here it is, the famous Lenin tea. Just boiled water with croutons. In Soviet literature, it was referred to as the beverage of a genuine Bolshevik, a modest, straightforward worker who has no need for material possessions. Lenin's comrades often observed the leader consuming this simple beverage. But in truth, no one knew that Ilyich simply had no other option. Krupskaya kept forgetting to add either sugar or tea leaves, or sometimes both.
At times, Lenin confided in his friends. Nadia was a difficult wife, but an indispensable assistant. No matter what happened, she was always by his side. She celebrated his victories and mourned when he suffered. The year 1920. A confidential telegram from the Caucasus, addressed to Lenin, was dispatched to the Kremlin. The report stated that while on vacation, a comrade, Inessa Armand, fell ill with cholera and suddenly passed away. After reading this, Lenin turned pale and leaned heavily on the table. Just before losing consciousness, Krupskaya managed to lift him into her arms. She grabbed the telegram and quickly skimmed through it. This couldn't be. Anyone but her. Anyone but Inessa. Nadia started having trouble breathing. They were together for so many years. Armand loved and cared for her Volodya. She gave the only thing she couldn't give herself, a woman's love for a man. And now she has passed away. Volodya, how will he endure it? Stalin skillfully managed, issued orders, appeared modest, but was indispensable. In just 2 years, this so far inconspicuous party member will reveal his true colors. He will remove the ill Lenin from office. He will be ostracized from his party colleagues and virtually confined to his dacha in Gorky, near Moscow. Krupskaya will share his exile. She was powerless against the unyielding will of Comrade Stalin. Because she fails to recognize a dangerous predator at one point, who was just waiting for the right moment. The death of Inessa Armand ultimately deteriorated Lenin's health. Fainting episodes became frequent. In 1922, he suffered his first stroke. Doctors advised the leader to refrain from working, but Krupskaya reassured everyone that Lenin was continuing his work. He dictates, she records. Nadia carefully observed her husband, spoke, and asked questions, but all Ilyich could do was nod his head. He could no longer speak. At the meetings of the Council of People's Commissars and the party's Central Committee, she defended the viewpoint that Krupskaya believed Lenin himself would have upheld. This situation did not please Stalin. He had recently been appointed the General Secretary of the Central Committee, but he felt insecure. He understood that Krupskaya was deeply concerned about Lenin and served as a link between Lenin and the party. For this reason, Stalin could not be a sole leader. At most, some of Stalin's opponents regarded Krupskaya as Lenin's successor to the head of state. This was unacceptable. Action had to be taken. Krupskaya stared blankly at Stalin. His rude behavior took her breath away. Comrade Krupskaya does not properly care for the patient. She does not allow doctors to visit him and acts according to her own will.
Sharing the same toilet with the leader does not mean that you have full rights over him. Lenin is not only yours, but primarily belongs to the party.
She felt insulted, humiliated, and angry. Stalin, without realizing it, struck at the very core. What she has been living through all these years. She has exclusive rights to Volodya, a mother's rights to her child. Ilyich belongs solely to her. She will not share it with any party. Was it the party that spoon-fed him and changed his wet diapers? Didn't the group sleep at night, listening to his breathing? Krupskaya took Stalin's words as a deeply personal insult. And she immediately decided how to exact revenge on this overconfident brat.
On December 23, 1922, the first part of the renowned testament was published. It describes how power should be distributed after Lenin's rule. And on January 4, 1923, an explanatory note was published. Stalin is too harsh, and this deficiency becomes intolerable in the position of Secretary General. I propose considering the removal of Stalin from this position and appointing a different individual. These were the words written by Krupskaya. Her retaliation against the offender. In this manner, she attempted to safeguard both herself and Lenin, but she was unsuccessful.
January 21, 1924. In the morning, the patient's condition worsened. He was moved to the bed. A medical council convened at the house. Krupskaya looked at the doctors with hostility. Her head was spinning. It was difficult to breathe. She needs to intervene, remove these people, assist, rescue him, as she always has. She leaned over the bed. The chest of the sick man rose unnaturally. Heavy breathing was frequent, then suddenly it became quiet.
No! Get out! Get out of here!
She hugged him, sobbed, and uttered his name. They tried to pull her away, but in vain.
Let it go. Get away! Get away!
She couldn't hear or feel anything anymore, apart from the intense, unbearable pain. The people's farewell to Lenin lasted 5 days and 5 nights. All this while, a gray-haired, disheveled woman with a vacant expression stood by the coffin. All this time, she persistently and tirelessly pleaded with Stalin to reverse the decision to bury the leader. Stalin issued an order. Lenin's body was embalmed and interred in a specially constructed mausoleum. Lenin will be raised to the Soviet Olympus. And everyone will forget about Krupskaya. She will outlive her husband by 15 years. These will be dreadful, intolerable years of solitary insanity. Years of isolation, years of devastation. She will no longer have anyone to live for. An elderly, unwell, neglected woman. A living mummy. She was trying to do something. She gathered other people's children around her, cared for pioneers and orphans from orphanages. But this business did not give her pleasure. Among all these children, she searched, but could not find her Volodya. Nadia finally retreated into herself and stopped making public appearances. She died all alone. She passed away quietly, peacefully. Krupska was not afraid of death. The real Nadia Krupska died back then. She died with the man she had loved as a son all her life.